Hi, I'm Sam Hamry. I'm Technical Support Manager at Earlex. I'd like to introduce you to the Earlex Steam Generator. We'll cover all the relative topics for steam bending wood, and I'll walk you through a wood bending project. Steam bending wood's a lot of fun and very different from flat work. There are all kinds of applications for steam bent wood, such as guitars, fishnets, tennis rackets, shaker boxes, chair backs, skis, sleds. The list goes on and on. The steam generator will expand your horizons and bring all those unique ideas and woodworking projects to life with bended wood. The Earlex Steam Generator system comes with everything you need to safely generate steam and get it into your steam box. The steam generator holds 1 1/4 gallons of water. You can see a fill line indicator on the side of the tank. Inside the tank is a 1500 watt heating element, much like the one in your water heater at home. You can't get to the element because the container is sealed to prevent burns from the element and the boiling water inside the tank. The steam generator also has several other features which will protect you from harm, like a pressure relief valve and an automatic shutoff if all the water boils away. You also get a 12-foot cool run hose, which stays cool to the touch when in use. The solid brass fitting is for connecting the hose to the steam box. It's attached to the box by drilling a 9/16 hole in the steam box, removing the nut and pushing the fitting into the box. Replace the nut to hold it tight. The connector is solid brass to ensure it does not corrode. The 6-foot power cord connects here. Once you plug it in, the water will start to heat up. There is no on-off switch. And the most important item in the box is the manual. The manual includes important safety features and quick guide on how to build a steam box. We'll elaborate on that later in this video. Please read the manual completely before using your steam generator. Before we start any steam bending project, we need to make a steam box. There are 2 main ways to build steam boxes. One is using exterior grade plywood scraps. Don't use furniture grade or interior plywood. It'll just fall apart after a couple of uses. The other option is with PVC from your local home improvement store. They both work equally well, but either way, the one thing you don't want is a completely sealed box because the steam will pressurize the box and it could explode. Personally, I prefer a wooden box, so that's what we'll build today. Using one steam generator, you can plan for a box about 6 inches square and up to 60 inches long. For anything larger, you may need to add another steam generator in order to keep the entire box at temperature. You'll need to make sure that it's sealed at one end and has a hinged door at the other. You should have wooden blocks or dowels inside for your workpiece to rest on so that steam can get all around it. The less the supports touch your project, the better. Also, make these pieces out of something with no acids or mineral marks in it. For instance, don't use oak dowels. Oak has tannins that are released during the steaming process. The tannins can transfer onto your workpiece. You're also going to need to drill a 9/16 hole in the middle of the steam box so that the steam is distributed evenly. You'll need a 1/4 inch drain hole at the bottom, close to the end for the moisture and condensation to escape. The steam will recondense inside the box. That water needs to be drained or it will have a cooling effect. It's easiest to set the box at a slight angle so the water can run towards the drain hole and drain out onto the floor or into a bucket or container. You can do the same with PVC pipe with end caps, following the same ideas as the wood box, as in blocks to raise the workpiece, drain holes drilled, but not sealed so tight that pressure builds up. If you're planning on steaming wood that is over 60 inches in length, you'll need to build a longer box and use 2 steam generators, one at each end. Keeping the temperature up is the challenge you'll run into with larger steam boxes. A few tips to keep in mind. Steam is created at 212 degrees Fahrenheit at sea level. It's important to keep the temperature up throughout the process, as well as make sure the steam never stops until you're ready to remove your workpiece. If you're at a higher elevation, the temperature may not reach 212 degrees. At 1 mile above sea level, water will boil at 200 degrees. But the important thing to note is that there is steam. As long as the steam generator is producing steam, you're good to go. Don't open the door too often. you'll immediately reduce the retention of heat and could take you right back to the start of your process. If you're using two steam sources, you should start the first one and then start the second one 15 minutes later. This way, when one runs out of water, you can refill it before the other runs out. It also helps to put hot water in the steamer rather than cold, which will take longer to get back up to temperature. At this point, we have our steam box built and we can attach the steam generator. To get started, we'll fill the steam generator with water to the fill line. I suggest using a pitcher or filling directly from the faucet. Clean tap water is fine for this application. You don't need special water or chemicals. The next step is to make sure the hose is attached to the steam generator. Screw the end of the hose to the port just below the fill cap. Make sure the other end is securely attached to your brass connector on the steam box. At this point, the steam generator is attached to the steam box, and once you place your project wood in the steam box, close the door. Now you're ready to start the steam generator. Plug it in to turn it on. In about 20 minutes, it'll start producing steam and should look like this. You can use hot water to speed this process up a bit. From a full tank, you'll get about 2 hours of steam time. If you know you'll need less steam time, use less water. It'll heat up even quicker. Remember, steam is hot, and even though the Earlex Steam Generator is the safest system you can use to steam bend wood, you still have to apply certain safety rules. These are fully explained in the manual, but the key points are: use heavy-duty gloves when opening the steam box, never block the hose, always connect the hose to the steam generator and the steam box before plugging it in, and always unplug the steam generator before refilling. The main point to remember when steam bending is that there should be 1 hour of steaming for every inch of thickness. So a 1x2 board takes 1 hour of steaming. A 2x4 inch board takes 2 hours of steaming. In this case today we're using 1/4 inch, so we're looking at about 15 minutes. Even if this was a 1/4 inch by 2 inches wide, it would still only be 15 minutes. The principle of steam bending is that the steam will soften the lignin in the wood. Lignin is the natural glue that holds the wood cells together. When you heat the lignin, it softens and makes it easier to bend. When choosing wood for your bending project, green wood is the best choice, as it'll bend easily with minimum steaming. Air-dried wood is the second best choice, and kiln-dried wood is a last resort. The problem with kiln-dried wood is that the lignin has been cooked by the dry heat used to cure it. Once that lignin is cooked, it's somewhat harder to get it to bend. However, I have found that by doubling the steaming time, you can get kiln-dried wood to bend. Direction of the grain is the next most important factor when choosing wood for bending. It should be straight and parallel with the board. In other words, the grain shouldn't run off the edge of the board because that will cause splitting. One more thing. Porous woods will accept steam better and will usually bend easier than non-porous woods. Think oak, hickory, and walnut, and not so much maple and poplar. Once you've taken the board out of the steam box, it will harden up again rather fast, so it's important to work quickly. You'll generally have 30 seconds to a couple of minutes to get your piece bent and clamped to a form, depending on the thickness. I also recommend that you steam about 25% more wood than you need for the project at the same time, so that you have extra in case of failure. Steaming more wood at the same time doesn't increase the steam time as long as each piece is separate from the other and steam can get to all areas of each board. Once you've put a piece of wood in the steam box, you have time to organize everything so the bending process goes smoothly and safely. You'll need heavy-duty gloves, numerous clamps, the forms, and a bending strap. You may need a drill with bits, a pencil, and room to work because bending takes up some space. Using a bending strap will help prevent tear out on the outside of a curve, and it'll make it easier and safer to bend an oversized piece. Keep in mind, bending a 3/4 inch piece that's 18 inches long around a 90-degree 4-inch radius will result in the inside curve compressing to about 16 inches while the outside remains at 18 inches. The excessive tension on the outside curve can result in tear out. But by using the strap, this tension will be counterbalanced to help prevent that from happening. Make sure that the strap is wider than the wood you intend to bend. If the wood is wider than the strap, it can lead to uneven bending and cause problems. An alternative to a strap is the other half of the form that you'll make. If you make a form out of 3 pieces of 3/4 inch plywood stacked together and 12 inches square, you'll cut out what I call the female section. This is where you'll clamp the steam bent wood. The other half of that form, the male section, is perfect for applying evenly distributed pressure to the steam bent wood. Just remember to remove an equal thickness of material to match your steam bent wood from the male side of the form. Then clamp the 2 pieces together with the steam bent wood between them. The project I've chosen today is a sled for my daughter's doll. I found a design I like in one of my favorite woodworking magazines. The plans I have are for a full-size sled, so I had to modify the dimensions. Once I have the dimensions figured out, the first thing I need to make are the forms. For this project I need 2 forms, one for the backrest and one for the skis. The backrest worked out to be a 6-inch radius, which is rather tight. The skis need a 4-inch radius. I built the forms out of 3 layers of 3/4 inch plywood. Your form should always be slightly taller than the width of the piece being bent. I'm bending 1.5 inch wide piece of wood, and my form is 2.25 inches wide. I also added a back so that when you bend the wood, it'll have a stop which will help keep the piece square with itself. On the backrest form, I added a block at the top of the bend, which is the most likely area for failure. On the ski form, I added a top block for the same reason. I also added a stop block that gives me the exact length for the skis. The skis have a stopping place, but the backrest doesn't. So we'll need to make sure that we mark the center of the board before we steam it so that we can line it up perfectly in the form. Also be sure to mark the center of the form. Now it's important to clamp the forms down so they don't move around when you're bending the wood. The action of bending sometimes uses a lot of force, and things can move on you when you least expect it. I'm going to clamp the backrest form and the ski form directly to the bench. We've had our wood steaming for about 30 minutes, and I think they're ready to bend. I want to point out that the entire board is not being bent. In the case of the backrest, it's really just the middle, and on the skis, it's the end. So when I load my boards into the steam box, I make an effort to make sure that the section of board that is to be bent is actually closest to the steam inlet. Now, you want to make sure that you're wearing gloves for this part of the operation. Don't try to get away with one glove because you think you can handle it. The steam is hot. The board is hot. You can't escape the heat, so protect yourself. So here's our first piece coming out. This will be a backrest piece. And I want to line up my center mark with the line we made earlier and put it into our form. And using my hands first, I'm going to bend it to the form, and then I'm going to clamp it down using my clamp. Now you want to work quickly because you only have a certain amount of time before it starts to dry up and harden up again. Now I'll do the same thing for the skis. But in this case, I'm bending 2 pieces at the same time. One piece goes in this side, bend it to your form, clamp it down. Grab another piece, goes in this side, bend it to the form, clamp it. Now that the boards are in the forms, we'll leave them there until they're dry. If you were doing a production run, I'd have multiple forms going at the same time. But because we're doing a small project, I'm just going to wait till the board dries on this form. I don't mind waiting. The amount of drying time can vary, but in general it should dry at least twice the amount of time that it's steamed. While we're waiting for these parts to dry, let's talk about what can go wrong. Close-in can happen when the wood is too wet or over-steamed. You'll see this on the inside of the bend where the compression of the wood will wrinkle. If you make the piece a little bit thicker than the finished dimension you're looking for, you could cut out the over-compressed side to get to your final dimension. Failure can occur due to a weak spot in the wood, like a knot or grain runout, or just too tight a curve for that species or thickness of wood. I generally steam 25% more wood than I need just for such an occasion. Now that our boards are dry, we want to remove them from the forms. Remove them is pretty straightforward. You want to be careful removing the clamps because there may be some spring back to the pieces you're taking off the forms. In this case, I want to compare my two boards to make sure they're very equal to each other so they look good on the project. If you're happy with the results you've got, you can go ahead and build the rest of the project. One thing I like to do is go ahead and keep a clamp on the bent pieces to hold that shape while I'm waiting to assemble it to the project. I may even overbend them slightly to compensate for spring back, but once they're attached to the project, they'll hold their shape and you won't get any more spring back. Thanks for watching and good luck on your projects. If you have any questions, please contact us at questions@earlex.com or call us toll-free at 888-783-2612, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 Eastern Time.